Joining us now, member of the Armed Services and Judiciary Committees, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, and staff writer at The Atlantic, Julia Yaffe. Good to have you both on board. Senator Blumenthal, so much to talk to you about. We'll start with Russia, though, as we were bumping in here with the Facebook involvement. I do think that on lower levels of the campaign, they were using Facebook just like any other campaign would use Facebook. At the high levels of the campaign, though, there are questions about the connections with Russia. Where does the probe stand right now as far as you see it?
We are looking at the Facebook ads. I've seen them and reviewed them, and certainly they are extremely sophisticated. The Russian ads are a tableau of very sinister as well as sophisticated use of social media. And the question is whether they were assisted, whether there was collusion with the Trump campaign, and that is one of the focuses of our investigation. And we've reached no conclusion, but the important point is the special counsel is reviewing that issue as well, along with the obstruction of justice issue.
And given that amidst the backdrop of this is Bob Corker's comments in the past 24 hours about the president, which gives you a sense not just of whether or not you think he's fit to lead, but what his moral code is in terms of the decisions he would make when he's running a campaign, the things he might do. Are you all taking that into consideration?
The moral issues are profoundly important, but the focus really has to be for us on the legal issues. Whether there was obstruction of justice, our responsibility in the Judiciary Committee is oversight over the FBI, the firing of Jim Comey, whether that was obstruction of justice,
right,
the potential misuse of the Department of Justice itself. But the Facebook ads, I think, indicate an attack on our democracy. And that attack, if it was aided or abetted by the Trump campaign, indicates not only a moral failing, but a profound violation of law, because the Russians are going to do it again if they don't pay a price this time, and anybody who colluded with them paying a price as well.
Right. Senator, what strikes me in my own reporting on Facebook and the Trump campaign is that the Russian effort, as we currently understand it, consisted in large part of using tools that are freely available to any campaign, to any company in America, to me, to you. And they use those against us in our own election. Is there a realistic possibility of any kind of a regulation or kind of intervention that would actually make a bit of difference on this if it's so central to what these big companies do every day?
Great question. And the answer, yes, there is, in the form of disclosure. Right now, there is no transparency, no disclosure whatsoever. And so I am helping to lead a measure that would require Facebook to say, in effect, the Russians are paying for this message. Coming to you straight from Vladimir Putin as part of a campaign to try to sow discord, to undermine our democracy. It wouldn't say all that, but in effect, that would be what the message is to the American people. And it ought to be broader than just political campaigns. If Vladimir Putin is using Facebook or Google or Twitter to, in effect, destroy our democracy, the American people should know about it.
Elise.
Julia Elise Jordan here. Yesterday was Putin's birthday in Russia, and protests all over the country, but in support of the opposition leader. How do you see this impacting, the run-up to the 2018 election in Russia, if at all?
Well, Putin still hasn't announced if he's going to run, so, we don't know what he's going to do, but obviously he's going to run, and he's going to win. He's still largely popular. The thing about I just want to refer to what the senator said about Facebook. It is widely available, and as we've seen with things like the ProPublica investigation about micro-targeting ads, for example, to rabid anti-Semites, it's the wild, wild west on these platforms, and anybody who wants to misuse them can. And just traveling around the country during the campaign, most voters told me that Facebook was their main source of news. And if you're Russia and you've honed these techniques at home, now's the perfect time, or 2016 was the perfect time to export them. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that things like Ferguson and racial tensions are going to be to your great benefit if you amplify them.
Steve, and Facebook is a news source,
Yeah.
whether they like it or not, right?
It is. It is. And look, I think we're on the front end of having a debate in this
I
country
agree.
about how big should these companies become? How powerful do we want to let them be? How much do we want them to affect economically the competitive landscape in the country? Are antitrust laws needing updating for the digital age
Right,
in these
corporate responsibility.
companies? And I do think that Vladimir Putin looked at us as a country, and he understood something about us that we need to be honest with. He understood how easy it would be to get us at each other's throats. And one of the things that's clear from this was not an attack on the Democratic Party. This was an attack on the United States of America. And we'll find out through the special counsel if there's been criminal wrongdoing, but there's certainly been collusion, as evidenced by the meeting with Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, with members of the Russian intelligence community. And it is also true that in every single instance, 100% of the time, 100% of the people asked a question in this administration, from the president, the vice president, and on down, have lied to the American people about it. 100% of the
So
time.
we'll continue this conversation with Julia next block. But Senator, before you go, the president was tweeting videos about what a great job he has done in Puerto Rico. Somehow making that story about himself still. Can you update us on the efforts there and exactly how would you characterize what President Trump has done in Puerto Rico?
I went to Puerto Rico with a bipartisan group. There were 5 of us, senators and a number of Congress people on the trip, and we flew over the island, and it was a profoundly moving experience to look down on this beautiful island, a part of America, with 3.4 million Americans, towns completely destroyed, flattened, community centers gone, thousands of homes decimated. And to hear that 90% of the transmission is down, half the island has no potable water, 1,000 meals, a million meals a day have to be delivered. There's a humanitarian crisis, and America is on the verge of failing fellow Americans. The great efforts and heroic work of FEMA and the military and our first responders are continuing the triage. But essentially, there's no plan, no strategy for long-term rebuilding, which is so essential to the island. And where the president is lacking is in leadership. There's no Marshall Plan, which is what we need for rebuilding and recovery on Puerto Rico. And the consequence is that there is a growing outflow of talent, skills, brains from
They're leaving.
Puerto Rico.
Why?
They're leaving.
How could you
I'm
stay?
meeting with a number of the families later today who are coming to the United States. They're going to be here needing education and other services, and we need to welcome them. But the fact of the matter is that a bipartisan plan is necessary, and the leadership has to come from the White House. So far, it has not.
All right, in our next hour, we're going to talk to Puerto Rico's governor about that. Senator Richard Blumenthal, thank you so much. It's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.